What's happening, friends? Welcome back for another episode of Waynecast. I'm Rob Johnson, recording in a bit of a different studio this week. I'm actually in my home office, and we didn't have enough time to tape an episode in our normal studio, so there's no Chris on this episode, unfortunately. He has become a fan favorite, but in this episode, I had one topic I wanted to talk about this week, and it's not going to be a terribly long episode, but my hope is that it's really impactful and helpful for you. So the mission of this show has been to just talk about business and lifestyle and the balance of those two things from an entrepreneur or professional perspective. And I thought it would be really interesting if we wound back the clocks about 6 months and I talked to you about what's been going on at Wayne Media, some of the new developments that we've had and some of the new opportunities that we've had. And what made me think about this show and doing it in this way is that I did a speaking engagement a few weeks back, and it's live on YouTube now, so I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. But I started off the talk by discussing how there's a lot of gurus, social media, self-help experts, people that really think they know how to motivate people and how to get them across the finish line. And I've just never been a fan of that style because motivation really is just a moment before you need more motivation. It's just a moment before you need another push. And also a lot of the motivational ideas or a lot of the social media advice and concepts aren't widely applicable. People take niche concepts that they've had success with and they try to apply them to the masses, and it just isn't effective. It's not helpful. So the talk that I had given to those entrepreneurs and professionals was largely on 8 things you shouldn't do when it comes to social media. And my favorite point is what I talk to businesses about most frequently, which is never lead with selling what you do. And the big takeaway of that was, if I tell you I'm a marketing person or I'm a web designer or I'm a videographer, like you get what I do, like you understand it when you see that online. The content that you're looking for or what you want to see from a professional is going to be something that's largely personal, largely centered around why they do what they do. And to me, that's always been much more impactful than talking about what you do. So I talk about that and 7 other things in the talk. So you can check all of that out on YouTube. And we're pushing out a bunch of micro clips as well on social media. So be sure to take a look at those. So for today's podcasting, and I want to look at the last 6 months of our company. So as I sit here right now, it's mid-March 2022. If we go back to October of 2021, we're entering into Q4, and Q3 of 2021 was the most successful quarter of our business. From a sales perspective, we sold more projects in July than we did the previous 4 months combined. So July was a really successful month for us inside of Q3. And then August and September were had a similar trend for us. So as we looked at Q4, there's a few things that I know being in this business just a little bit of time now. So we've had about 3 seasons worth of cycles from 2018 to 2022. So typically what I've found in the marketing business and just kind of looking at business trends is November is usually a really good month up until about the 15th. And then business kind of halts until December 1st through about the 10th or the 15th. And then we're on a hold until February 1st. So in my head, usually January is a really low sales month. And then February for us is a really low sales month, but traction is starting to get built again. So typically I know that between November and February, those are going to be our weakest months as a company. So I try and prepare for that by making sure that we spread project capital out through those months to ensure we never have a shortage. It's something that I discovered quickly during COVID that we needed to do in order to sustain difficult months and difficult months during a pandemic, which just exacerbate that particular issue. I'm sure a lot of you with businesses can fully understand that. So as we got out of February, we started to get a lot more attention and a lot of traction. And February was also when the Omicron variant started to subside here in Michigan as well as in Kentucky. So we were seeing a lot of economic factors change that were leading more people to our door, that opened up capital for businesses where they were ready to reinvest in marketing, advertising, podcasting, whatever it is, right? So in March, which is where we're at right now, the first 20 days of the month, we sold more than I did the entire first year that our company was around. In our first year, we did just about 100,000 in sales, like for the entire year. And granted, we were doing it part-time. There's only 2 of us. We were still trying to learn literally everything about the business, but that's where we were. So, we're on a really good trajectory now. And I feel like a lot of times when people say, hey, we've done, we're a 7-figure marketing company, or we're a 8-figure marketing company, or we've made 6 figures in a month, there's a lot of ambiguity to it. And for us, we had never made 100,000 in a month before. And as an agency with now 14 people, we're starting to find our traction, and we're starting to grow really quickly because we can move very fast with the team that we have. And that's been really important to me is, do we have the processes down right so we can grow carefully? Because we've been in periods of growth where it's been hectic, it's been straight up chaotic, and it's been difficult because we didn't have all of the pieces in place. We might have had 90%, and we really felt that 10% that we were missing. So there's been a lot of issues within our company, just in terms of organization. When I say a lot of issues, it's not like systemic issues, but just little things that we need to make sure we have taken care of. And for businesses, it's probably scary to go out in public and talk about things like this, or say, hey, we have an issue, because you're worried that people are going to say, well, they don't have it all together. And I'm here to tell you, we don't have it all together, but we have a lot together. We have a lot of things together. We're just not 100%, and it never will be. No business is ever going to be 100% on point. My goal as the leader of our company is to ensure that every month is better than the last month, and that we continue to give exceptional customer service that has concepts like extreme ownership at the front of everything we do. It's super important for us. So in the last 6 months, we had that very similar trend that we've seen every year. November was really good. December was kind of mediocre. January and February were pretty bad from a sales perspective, just because not a lot of activity. The new variant was literally like we had both of our teams out in each office for a week to 10 days at a time. And then also just our clients and customers were smashed by it as well. So it's been a really unique time to navigate opening this agency and opening this new podcast concept, this new studio throughout a pandemic. But if anything, it's just made us better. We understand how to navigate a recession really well. And when we have a boom period, we understand what planning and preparing and saving for the low periods also looks like now. So it's been really cool for us to go through that as an organization. So I want to talk about some things that have made our company really successful, and some key pieces that have made my life as the owner of the company better. And what I've found in talking to other agency owners is there's this really tight grasp mindset that people will have, where they look at everything in the company they need to have control over, or they need to be able to pull the string and make it work. And that's just never been my style. From the day one, I was like, how do we make sure all of our employees that are running accounts have good relationships with our clients? And not just in person, not just when I'm on the call, but always. So from the beginning, I've been training our people on talking to clients. How do we work on frustrations? How do we quell problems? How do we mitigate, just anything that happens within, the course of our work with a client? How do we ensure that we're not screwing it up? Or how do we make sure that we're serving them exceptionally well? And that's been something we've really put a lot of time, money, and energy into in our processes and our systems and our people, to make sure that they feel well equipped to have those conversations. And that does two things for me. One, it gives me the ability to go out and grow the company quicker because now we have a model in place that we can replicate for having people interact with clients. The second thing it does is it limits the amount of time I'm talking to clients. And this is another one of those things where it's like, if you have, 60 to 70 clients, which we're in that tier right now, and I can't talk to every client every day. My goal is to do at least a monthly touch point with them where I get some FaceTime and can chat and just, consult. And when we do marketing meetings or marketing strategy or whatever it is, I'm in those meetings. But, right now it's important for us to make sure that they understand that our team is extremely well equipped and I don't need to be there for every decision that needs to be made because there's other people that have, in some cases, more knowledge than I do on what they're working on. And that's another cool thing, just to sideline a little bit, is like, it's been fascinating for me to see other people that have just blown by me in the technical capabilities department. There's better graphic designers, better web developers, better videographers. I'm not a videographer to begin with, but it's just always cool that there's been people that have picked up a new skill and have quickly accelerated and advanced and have grown through that without me needing to, match them or feel like, well, I got to be just as technically capable. It's not going to happen. There's going to be people that are going to be way better at things than you and your company. And that's a good thing. That's an okay thing. That's something you should be fully comfortable with, is people being better than you at their jobs. Because my job at the end of the day is to ensure that our culture is on point, our employees are well taken care of, our clients are well taken care of. My job is to not understand the latest and greatest, look at the newest roadmap notes for Photoshop to see this new feature that came out. That's what the graphic designers are there for. And that's an okay thing. It's super okay, and it's encouraged, because if you try to micromanage everything, you're going to, get a death by 1,000 paper cuts by trying to figure out everything. And it's probably going to piss off the employees because they're constantly feeling like they're being micromanaged by you trying to keep in step with them. And it's just not good. It's not good for culture. It's not good for really anybody. So a few key pieces of the company that we've implemented. So last year, I recognized that in our Louisville office, we have really three divisions down there. We have the sales division, we have videography, and we have the podcasting. All the creative is in Michigan. And I figured out, if we had someone that could be kind of our communication hub between those three different areas of service in the Louisville office and be our communication hub to Brighton, then we'd have a person that's piecing together all of the company and making sure that our communication is on point between locations. So I hired a project manager, and this was the first position I've ever hired that I didn't calculate a direct ROI. So typically when I calculate a position, so let's just make it easy and say I pay somebody $10 a month, which would be absurd, but let's say I did. I would make sure that if I'm paying somebody $10 a month, they are responsible for enough business to keep us profitable, keep the lights on for that particular position, and keep us growing. So if it's $10 a month, I'd want to make sure that we can bill at least $20 a month. That way we have profit, overhead, and everything else covered. Excuse me. So when you're doing, a business, those are the key things that you're going to look at to be able to scale and grow effectively. So when I have a new creative come on board, I want them to be responsible for between 6 and 10 clients to make sure that they are working on enough billable hours to cover their salary and to cover profit for the company. So this was the first position that I hired that didn't have any of that built in. There's no creative services. There's no project work. There's nothing that's going into this position that is easily defined as, is this helping us? Rather, this was a long-term investment towards a column that I call organizational development that's helping me keep things straight between both locations, because dropped communication, missing pieces on a project, all of those things can result in the loss of a client. So in terms of client retention and even employee retention, with making sure that all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, that position helps in the retention department on both sides of the house. So that's also invaluable. So we ran that position for about 6 months, and I was like, okay, this makes perfect sense. It's working extremely well. And my schedule was getting just straight up overran. As we hit the 10-11 the 10-11 employee mark, I found that there was just not enough time for me to manage everything. So I said the next thing I'm going to hire is an assistant to help me run my schedule, help me run operations in Brighton, kind of be a communication liaison between me and our clients and me and, employees at other locations. So I brought that position on in Q4 of 2021, and that's just accelerated everything that we do. It gives me the ability to work much faster in my environment, and also to have a person that I can bounce ideas off of and strategize with that can really understand, what intake and output looks like in a creative process. So those have been two positions that I can't really attribute billable hours to, but have been incredibly impactful for my company. So when I look at other people's businesses and they say, well, we have, generally it's the general contractor or the manager, and then it's all of the subs or all of the employees, and they're all electricians or whatever the industry is. And the electricians have to generate billable hours. And usually the office staff is the one that's left behind in terms of operations. And then when checks aren't deposited, or when things are missed, or when there's just a litany of issues within an industry, you'll find that it's because the office staff isn't staffed well enough to keep up with those things, and that loses you clients, and that loses you productivity. And even though you can't assign a client to them and say, hey, this is our profit margin on this job, what you can say is, because of the office staff, we've been able to grow by 10% because we can answer the phone now. We can put the right people on the right projects at the right time to ensure they're done in a timely fashion. So that's always super important. And the more I have these kind of non-operations positions where they're not creatives, they're not videographers, they're not engineers, the better I'm seeing us grow as a company, largely just because it's making all of us more organized. It's creating more opportunities for us in the field, and it's allowing all the other managers or directors in the company to sit down and make key decisions, because we have the organization, because we have all of the project management apps filled out, and we have procedures that are well written, and we have all these small things that really don't seem like they'd be overly impactful, but in terms of day-to-day productivity, they have been. And it's opened up the door for much more opportunity for us as a company, which has been really cool to see. So when I talk about the tactics, when I talk about the details, the main things I would invite you to look at is, what does your office staff look like? What does your non-production staff look like? And that's people that you can't really bill hours against. It's more of an office staff or an assistant or a project manager. What do those things look like in your business? And if you had that, how many more opportunities would it open up for you? We use the phrase a lot, I want to get this off my plate, or I need to get this somewhere else, and I need to get it in someone else's court, whatever the analogy is. But if you look at your plate, what are some things that you could easily offload to somebody else? And then what could you do with that time to either help grow the business or spend more time at home with your family? You need to look at those things because they're super important in the work-life balance section of a business as well. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, or you feel like you have all this weight on you, the answer is probably, one, you're doing too much, and two, there's a better way to do it with more people without losing any money. Because if you're overwhelmed and you're overworked, you're probably doing everything at about 60 or 70% quality is what you normally would do because of the stress. And if you offloaded some of those tasks, your work quality would go up. Your work-life balance quality would definitely be more level. And you would find that the new person that has come on board, or the person that you've shifted responsibilities to, is helping you take a lot of those things off your plate so you can go grow the company. You can go spend more time at home. There's just a lot of value in really thinking about what you're currently working on a day-to-day basis and how you can shift those things to other people. And one of the biggest fears I had, and I'm completely fine with talking about this, but I didn't want to seem like someone that was just always delegating tasks. I never wanted to be the manager that was like, well, he's not doing anything, he's just telling people what to do. That was always a concern. And what I can tell you is, if that is a concern of yours, you don't really have to worry about you having that problem, if that makes sense. Because if you're already thinking about it, if you're already concerned about it, you already have that empathy towards the people that you're working with to make sure that you're not just putting all your work off on them. You already have a conscious mind about it. It's the managers that never give it any thought. It's the people that are just like completely fine with delegation. They never really are concerned about how the balance is between the team. Those are the people that are going to cause the problems, not the people that are actively worried about it. Because as I've gone through it, I'm like, well, I'm obviously doing a ton of stuff every day that other people aren't doing. It's just I can't do this, and this person is more equipped to do it. So there's just a lot of those fears that I've certainly had come up in the company, and just some things that I've really thought about to make sure that I am consistently being a good leader. And when I have shortcomings, when I have deficits or problems, I want people to talk to me about them. I want to be able to be approached. And that's a really good sign of a leader is, are they open to criticism and do they ask for it? And one of the more unique things we talked about in the last episode with Dave when he was on was, I'm always looking for feedback, critiques. How can we do things better? So we just hired a new graphic designer in our creative department. So what I told her on her first day, which was this week, I said, look, if you see things that are going on and you're like, hey, why are we doing things like this? Or is there a better way to do this? Like, ask the question. Don't feel like because you're new, you don't have a voice in this. Like, everyone has a voice in this. And two things are going to happen, or one of two things are going to happen when you ask a question on one of our processes. You're either going to understand while we do it, you're either going to understand why we do it, or we're going to put another think on it and figure out a way to do it better because you've brought it up. So it's a win-win for everybody when you ask those questions. It's the teams that don't want feedback, or the teams that are like, well, that's the way we've always do it, or that's the way that Rob wants it done. Like, I don't like that. It can't be like that. The question is, does this work best for everybody on the team, not just me? And if we don't think about it in those terms, you're going to be a very small company because people are not attracted to those types of behaviors and attitudes and cultures. And especially now, right now it's so difficult for people to find employees because they're realizing that their culture sucks and that it's a deterrent for people that want to work there. They're realizing how important it is for businesses to be, very mindful about corporate culture and very mindful about how well they treat their employees, because now the power is in the hands of the people rather than in the business. There's not a shortage of jobs. There's a shortage of people. And it's really forcing businesses to take an inside look at themselves and say, wow, we've kind of grown this thing not as well as we should have. And it's showing by the lack of people that are wanting to work here. And that's one of those truths where you're like, you have to take in the data, you have to assess it, and you have to action it. And if you don't, then you will probably fail. If you're not going to accept the data that's on the table, that is the market trying to correct you. And as a business owner, you need to be open to that change. You need to be open to that correction. So hopefully that helps if you're a professional entrepreneur, if you're in that boat and you're just, kind of trying to figure out how to spin things up and grow. That's kind of a look at the last 6 months of what we've done from a tactical perspective to ensure that we keep growing. So things like making sure that our revenue is split between months. So when we have a bunch of high months, we push that capital to the side for the months when we suspect that we're going to be lower. And then we've also really put an effort into our company culture to make sure that it's very horizontal in terms of, people being able to speak to people up or down the chain of command. So there's a lot of really good things that I think we're doing, and there's a lot of things that we need to keep learning and working on. So it's never going to be a completed work. One of my favorite Bill Burr stand-up bits is when he's talking about his wife and how, she thinks that she's this completed work of glass, or this completed work that's kept underneath glass, and he's this building with scaffolding around it that's never going to get fixed. That really is every business. Every business is that building with scaffolding around it that's going to keep getting worked on. And we should invite that. We should be excited about that, because anytime you're like, yeah, we've made it, that's kind of a sign that you're not really in the game anymore. You've kind of taken yourself out and you're just kind of an offensive coordinator up in the booth. You're just calling plays, but you're not really on the field anymore. So I always want to be on the field. I always want to be in the game, because I love this and I love what I do. So hopefully this podcast was helpful for you guys. We'll be back in studio next week with another great show. And thanks so much for listening. It means the world to me, guys. It really does. We are almost to 100 episodes. We're about 25 away right now, which is crazy. But I really do appreciate all the listeners, everyone that's been following the show, sharing it. It means the world. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Take care.